So before I start off this video, let me first say I don't want to raise anybody's expectations and hopes too high. I mean, you already know the current situation going on with Anthem and its current state, so take this video as a form of speculation / discussion / news piece, as there's also some new info to go over. But since we were kinda left in the dark in terms of new updates and seemingly Bioware not having anything prepped for this month, I think the discussion we're about to have is now more relevant than ever. So let's dive right into it. Also, a quick shout out to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video once more, and you guys already know what's up. If you want to buy cheap games, check the links down below and you will also help the channel in the process. Anyway, to start things off, a few days ago I've talked about the possibility for Anthem to make an appearance at this year's EA Play. If you don't know what EA Play is, it's basically Electronic Arts' own version of E3. They held this in the past while also participating at the Electronic Entertainment Expo, but this year it looks like it's going to be even bigger than ever before, and with big publishers shifting trends towards creating their very own gaming related expos, this comes to nobody's surprise. Lately, many gaming companies have decided to create their very own events rather than get clamped together in one single conference, and we even saw Sony, for example, doing their own announcement to not even be a part of E3 this year, and there's other big names in there as well, shifting tradition too, so yeah, you kinda know the details. But anyway, there's many players and non-players saying now that Anthem is abandoned, that Bioware moving to Dragon Age 4 already is proof of that, and yeah, I kinda get their concerns, but I'm here to talk about a little bit more than just, you know, random opinions. The practice of moving leadership to the next project as soon as the previous one gets completed is common through the entire gaming industry and has nothing to do with how well the game has performed in terms of sales or ratings or whatever, so this wasn't really a surprise to anybody. I mean, Dragon Age 4 was mainly put on ice to bring people to Anthem in the first place, so if anything, Dragon Age was the one that had to be put on ice for Anthem and not the other way around. But moving on from here, Bioware did announce that they are currently working on the Cataclysm feature or event, which the roadmap is still advertising to drop this month, though I do have my reservations about it and I will explain a bit later why. On top of this, both Bioware and EA are adamant about continuing support on the game and, I quote, doubling down on it and continuing to heavily invest in it. So take this with a grain of salt. I think it makes sense for them to protect their newest IP, no matter how bad it performed, but there's no other real RPG live service co-op game like this under EA, and at this point it would still be much cheaper for them to improve Anthem rather than start a new project from scratch. I know many people like drawing comparisons to Mass Effect Andromeda when EA made somewhat similar statements about continuing support for it, but in reality, soon after that game's launch, it was already apparent that Andromeda would not see its DLCs come to fruition. I know that because I covered Mass Effect Andromeda extensively on my channel back then, so yeah, it was just straight out patch fixes with not even a single speck of content in between. There were no roadmaps back then, no announcements from developers working on new stuff, we didn't get any new content after the game's release, or at the very least nothing substantial, and about 4 months into it, they were already abandoning it. So drawing parallels I don't think makes it justice. On the other hand, Electronic Arts also isn't in the same old position as it used to be back in the pre-2016 era, raking massive profits from microtransactions in a completely unregulated market. Times have drastically changed since then. We're now several years later with many Western countries already moving towards regulating microtransactions in video games, and some have already done so, and even in the case of the United States, which is more lax in this regard, just a few days ago we had a bill introduced to bring actual regulations to the practice. So from EA's point of view, and with all of the backlash over this practice in full-price games, I can see how they are now moving on to a more defensive stance. Other games in their portfolio have already shifted towards a more consumer-friendly model, even though there's still some room to go. Battlefront 2, for example, is going great from what I'm hearing, and there's also the new single-player Star Wars game coming up really soon with no microtransactions or anything of the like. So in essence, what I'm saying here is that I'm seeing more indications that Anthem's development is going to continue rather than indications it won't. This kind of brings me to the EA Play event, which happens next month in June. Just a few days before E3 actually happens. According to the EA's latest earnings call, they have a lot of big stuff to show for their existing games lineup, including Anthem, of course. Anthem apparently is also going to be a part of the panel over there and is also going to have a significant one. How do I know this? I know this because several content creators, including myself, have been invited by EA at this event specifically for Anthem next month, and while I can't go into too many details, it's important enough to warrant a whole presentation. And as a side note, for those of you who will inevitably ask, no, I won't be there for personal reasons, and that is pretty much all I have to comment, but I will continue covering new info as it comes out, as I'm pretty sure there's going to be live streams of the event itself. But to get back on track, this info does line up with what many users had to say and what they have speculated for quite some time now. Bioware went full silent mode for a couple of months now and is getting something ready for the big main EA event for this year, and this is why I said that I have my reservations about Cataclysm events not being released in May. It sounds like Bioware is working on something substantial and wants to show it at that event, so my guess is that May will be another month of dreadful waiting and content drip feed up until EA Play comes up and Bioware announces their new content, and only after this announcement will we get to see it in game. However long will that be? At most we will get to see an initial small phase of the Cataclysm event starting up this month, but I'm not expecting anything like a raid content or anything, maybe in June. But yeah, whatever there's going to happen this month is probably going to be the beginning and will lead into something more substantial in June or maybe later. Again, that is just speculation on my part, and I'll gladly be wrong on this one if it means having actual new content in time. Now I will comment on the fact that in the off chance Bioware or EA are purposefully postponing content just to dick around at some event, that might piss more than enough people off, if there's even enough people left to be unpissed. Also, by the time EA Play comes around and Bioware supposedly announces something new, they do need to bring in something new that at least raises some people's hopes a little bit. Going on a big event, announcing and promising even more stuff once again when your crowd is already furious will deal even more damage than not going to it at all. On the plus side, yesterday's store reset did cause more than a few positive remarks from the players, and you already know my opinion on that as well. I liked a bunch of the stuff that has been put in the shop itself, though I would have loved it if it was, well, half a price. And since Bioware has said in the past that they are willing to create more wild customization options like particle effects and such, if they can combine those with better ways to award them to players in-game, that could give more reasons to players to stick by. But I think we should all start getting used to the idea that Anthem will see big content updates over longer periods of time. This means waiting for longer, but also getting more content as a result, which is fine with me, but I don't think many people agree with me at this point, which is funny because a few months back, before Bioware went full silent mode, most of the player base was actually endorsing this idea of waiting a little bit longer for bigger content updates, similar to what No Man's Sky did or other previous games. But you know, No Man's Sky is such an easy example, I can't not give it. But I don't think many of those players who were endorsing that idea were ready for what this kind of road actually means. It means a lot of silence until the developers have something to show, otherwise it's again going to be filled with complaints. Take No Man's Sky for example, which I know it's an example that I brought in way too many times, but this is exactly the kind of stuff that happened back then when it launched. And if you don't believe me, just go on Google, set your time to like 2016 and just check the amount of threads about, you know, developer silence going on. It's pretty much the exact same, almost copy-paste as it happens with Anthem right now, and obviously this is going to piss people off, but it's the way forward. Now what does this mean for existing players, both the ones who are still playing and for those who chose to stop a few months back? Well, it means this is still free content. Your anger towards the company and its practice shouldn't stay in the way of your enjoyment. You paid for the product and expected a certain level of entertainment. So unless you're able to fully refine the game right now, then my suggestion is to at least try out the new content as it gets added and see if you like it. Who knows, maybe you'll eventually come back in the game. I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna cover it all along the way with the new updates and the new news and all of that, at the very least, so you know what's happening happening with the game. But yeah, I think I said everything I had to say. Now tell me if you're looking forward to EA Play or E3 this year or any other conference, and also what are the updates or games you're looking forward to the most in 2019. Comment down below, also leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time, so peace out.